Good evening, YouTube. Nathan back with another video presentation. Hope everyone is doing well. Happy Thursday. Shout out to everybody that's here. As you see the title and thumbnail of this video, consider this a part two in reference to yesterday's video. Let's just call it what it is. This country needs healing. It does. What you saw yesterday, as I said in part one, which I said in yesterday's video, should anger you, should sadden you, and it should open your eyes to understand the society that we live in today. Let me say this, and I've said this in a few videos. We know that racism has been instilled in this country since the day it was founded. It has essentially passed on generation to generation, decade to decade. You're not born to be a racist. You're not taught to fear. You're not born to hate. You're taught those things. And those chains can be broken. But how you as the individual, it's up to you. Because it was interesting. In the group chat, and pretty much to me, it's Donald Trump has made it okay to be an open racist and an open bigot without understanding that comes with consequences. Because, for example, let's call it what it is. For example, I believe it was the founder of Papa John's, right? Had said something that was ignorant over a phone conversation. Could you imagine the amount of money he lost within a day? For example, I even use an example. In the midst with Colin Kaepernick, how that became political when Colin Kaepernick took a knee to bring awareness to the social injustices that was happening in black and brown communities, and how essentially Donald Trump was the face to ostracize him from not getting a job in the NFL. Could you imagine the example? The New England Patriots had signed Colin Kaepernick. In the hour, Robert Kraft would have gotten phone calls. Well, because you support a guy like that, we're pulling our sponsorship. What am I saying? There's a double standard here. What you saw yesterday, if you are okay with what happened, you should check yourself. Because what you see is the example of two Americas. I'm going to explain what I mean by that. But I'm going to tell you who lost yesterday. The American people lost. The American people were hurt. Because essentially, ever since this pandemic has occurred, besides that, losing loved ones and losing jobs, struggling to pay bills, put food on families' tables, this was something that was not needed. But because of a man who's selfish, who's ignorant, who's reminds me of It was funny. I had a friend in elementary school, spoiled to the teeth. No matter what they did, I remember clear as day. The mom came up there and just said, "Oh, that's just how he is." Blatantly disrespected the mom, cussed at her like a little sailor. Behavior. That's what Donald Trump shown yesterday. Because he's not willing to accept that he lost up until that. I don't want to even call that a statement. Where he now wants to accept, he wants to concede that he lost. And I'm gonna just say this: that was written for him. That's a teleprompter in front of him telling him, "Listen, what you see on this teleprompter, read this." He threw his vice president under the bus. He's essentially divided this country. But I will say this: when Barack Obama was elected his second term, you began to see the true colors. You began to see the cracks. When Donald Trump was elected, that was the match that was thrown onto the flame, onto the puddle of gasoline. Like kerosene. If you use a line of kerosene to something you want to blow up or something like that. January 6th. That's what happened. Is he essentially told those people, listen, we have to stop them from taking this election from us. Stop the vote. Go storm the Capitol. That's what he told those people essentially to do. So we can sit there and go, well, yes, well, you do have your right to freedom of speech, freedom of protest. You have those rights. But what you saw yesterday, no. Some will label that an insurrection, a coup d'etat. All this spewed over lies. Lies that he has filled his head with. And then on top of that, not only he was taking shots at the media, but oh, by the way, he's the one spewing this information to who? The media. Where you had people, particularly, I think it was the Associated Press, all their equipment virtually damaged. You have reporters threatened. Excuse me. That's what you saw January 6th. You saw dysfunctional, buffoonerish behavior. All because of a guy, a man who's supposed to be, according to some, the leader of a nation. Who's not willing to accept he's lost. The people have spoken. Now again, correct me if I'm wrong. I want to make sure I have this right. We have been in a pandemic for quite some time now. So there's a couple things that happened up until November 3rd, 2020. People were doing early voting. They were voting by mail because most people, let's just call it what it is, are not comfortable and still not comfortable going out here because they're not risking taking a chance of getting themselves sick or their loved ones getting sick. Some are doing that. So most of, mail-in ballots, early voting, and then some went and voted the actual night of the election. He comes out, he's essentially upset. Well, how come we're getting ballots past, the time the polls close? the Trojan horse that he put in there. I'm not going to get into all that, but essentially every vote counts. It is your civic duty to vote. If you're standing in a poll and it's past 7 o'clock and you're still there, you still need to vote. Plain and simple. Now, if it's 7:01 and the doors have closed, sorry. But when you hear some of these stories, well, this was my first time voting. Mind you, we had in about the 2016 election. I may be wrong about this. I think it was almost like 1 or 2 million, particularly blacks, that did not vote. This year was different because this year, 4 years later, people were tired of the buffoonery that they saw in Washington. Again, the soap opera, All My Chaos. Who was the star? Donald Trump. And January 6th was a season finale to be continued. Now, again, when you look, the fact that, listen, they have the right to protest. They have the right. But here's the thing. Most of them, maskless, instead of worrying about who won the election, shouldn't your concerns more be about, hey, how come it took you guys damn near almost 9 months to come up with only a $600 stimulus check when I'm struggling as it already is to put food on my family's table, pay bills, unemployment's at 7%, businesses are closing left and right. Why did it take you so long to pass a stimulus? Now I know someone's going to say, well, you're just sitting around and you're not really expecting, you don't want to get out here and work. Before COVID, people were bringing in money. People have lost an income. How do you, in the midst of what's happening right now, not only you have that on your plate, but if you have kids that are doing school virtually, and if you do find a new job, the concerns in the back of your mind, well, the person that's next to me, have they been tested? Have they been around somebody? These are the type of things that people are taking into consideration. With the I want to say it's like almost 21.5 million people that have COVID in the United States alone. And then 300,000, 65,000, 365,000 people. I believe as of yesterday, 4,000 people in one single day have died from COVID. When you look at all those people that were there, let's call it what it is. COVID has affected them in some type of way. Now, 2 Americas were shown. You've seen first and foremost, let's call it what it is. I'm just going to say it. In the summer, when it was Black Lives Matter protests, in the midst of what happened to Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, etc. I am not an advocate when it comes to burning and looting communities. I am not for that. It doesn't solve one damn thing. But that's how the unspoken are heard. Yesterday, Not even in the same sentence. Because of one man's lie. He told them, listen, you want to do, if you want to, we have to take back our country. We can't let this happen. I'm basically essentially paraphrasing what he said in that hour speech. But he told those people, we got to take back our country. Stop that vote. Let's call it what it is. There's no way in heck Black Lives Matter protesters, black, nowhere, not damn near nowhere 5 feet. Even if they get 5 feet into the Capitol, that ain't happening. And I don't want to hear, well, they were overwhelmed, they were. I don't want to hear that. That's bullshit. Because, again, this is Washington, D.C., particularly when it comes to the Capitol. When there is a disturbance, I will kid you not, I think it was 2013, it was a African American woman who we all found out later that she had some mental health issues, drove her car through a barricade, and instead of trying to find a way to stop her, they shot and killed her. What happened at the historical St. James Church, where he had Anthony Barr told those troops to open fire, rubber bullets. And on top of that, I can't remember if it was the same incident, but he tweeted, oh, thank God for my Secret Service, because if they had gotten through, these attack dogs were waiting for them. That's what he said. When you look at what happened yesterday, you've got the Metropolitan Police, and you had some armed officers. You even saw some that were pretty much going, okay, you know what? Let's go. That's disgusting. Because if they were black, which we've seen examples, you would have seen riot police armed to the teeth, ready. You would have seen tear gas. You would have probably seen a few water cannons, rubber bullets. That's what you would have seen. But even though you saw, and I believe there are snipers who are positioned at the Capitol. If they see anything that could endanger the lives of a politician or somebody. Now, I'm not suggesting that they needed to open fire. But let's call it, if any one person had walked up them steps, I pray to God no one would have gotten shot. But there's no way in hell. What you saw yesterday, that was happening for black folk. It just ain't happening. For them breaking the windows, entering the rotunda, where you see a guy on his phone, another guy walking out with a podium, another guy having his feet on Nancy Pelosi's desk. That ain't happening if they were black. What you saw right there was white privilege. Because the color of my skin, they're not going to do anything about it. When you had lawmakers having to take cover because they were in harm, and the fact that it took even that long of a time to clear out the Capitol, it shows you two distinctive Americas. The use of police right then and there. It was right there. It's right there in your face to see it. There should be no argument about that. Do we agree that there are hotheads when it comes to protests? Absolutely. But what you saw yesterday, if they were black, that ain't happening. It's just not. And then on top of that, when you hear threats, we'll be back with guns. You can believe that. These next 2 weeks, your antennas should be up. Kendrick Perkins on First Take said it best, and I'm gonna leave the links in the description for y'all to see. I'm in the same boat. I do not trust anybody right now. I don't. People think they're talking the 25th Amendment. Impeach him now. I don't trust anybody. Kendrick Perkins said it. He couldn't sleep. He paced his entire house. He had to check on his daughters quite frequently. Listen, if you don't think what happened yesterday bothers you, you need to wake up and understand that this is the world that we live in today. I told you, I'm a 26-year-old black man. When I walk out the house, I have to have my antennas up. When I go to work, well, before COVID, work, school, when I go to the grocery store or other places, my antennas are up. Because the color of my skin is essentially a weapon to some people. What you saw yesterday. How was that? How can you justify that? I don't know what he's capable of. Donald Trump, I don't know what he's capable of. But these next 2 weeks, your antennas should be up. Particularly come Inauguration Day. Because what you saw yesterday, that should concern you. Particularly as the American people. That should concern you. So, here's what's happening. Yes, we need to move forward and we need to rally together. And understand that this cannot be tolerated. But for those that look at it like, well, they're waking up. If you think that is the answer to solving problems, then you're part of the problem. I've said it in numerous videos. Your vote matters. But also, too, when you put these type of people in these positions, hold them accountable. For example, listen, Joe Biden. Hey, okay, congratulations. You're now the 46th president of the United States as of on January 20th. But we're going to be watching what you do, particularly the first 100 days. We're going to see how the first 4 years of your presidency looks. Hey, those in the Senate, House Representatives, mayors, DAs, police chiefs, hold them accountable. Just because we're putting them in these positions does not mean they don't get passes. And just because we're holding a guy like Donald Trump accountable for his actions does not mean that we in our own communities have work to do ourselves. It's like when you want to clean a house. What are you going to do? You're going to clean every floor, every room, every nook and cranny until it's clean. Don't just clean one half of the room, the top half of the first floor of the house, and the second half leave it dirty. That's not clean. That's half-ass. That's a half-ass job. You want the entire house clean, clean it, top to bottom, room by room, and every nook and cranny. That's what has to be done. But for also him to show the fact that the yesterday and on the 6th, instead of being in front of a camera and saying, yo, enough's enough. Those two videos show that he absolutely does not care. Him giving medals of freedom to 3 golfers just lets you know where his mind's where he's at. You know, this is who he is. It's disgusting. It lets you know the mindset of, wow, and how was he elected again? But just pretty much wrap this up, because I don't want to keep you long with this. People need to be held accountable for this. And I'm talking 20, 30 years. But we all know bill will be posted within 24, 72 hours. We know that. I'm telling you, if January 6th, if yesterday did not bother you, and at least didn't open your eyes to go, wow, that really happened. I don't know what to tell you. But you saw yesterday 2 distinctions of America. That was not a protest. It was not. The same thing you can say what happened in Charlottesville, University of Virginia. They have a right to do what they have a right to freedom of speech. They have a right to freedom of protest. But what I saw, I'm sorry, you can't justify that. But these next 2 weeks, I'm going to be watching very closely what happens. And so should you. But let's keep it 100. As a mass communications major, yes, me. Never take anything the media says two-faced. You never take the media serious sometimes. You have to do the research. You can't take it at its face value. And you really can't take sometimes what people on this platform or others say. When they tell you, don't wear the mask. When they tell you, don't do this, don't do that, you're only hurting yourself. When you are, oh my gosh, you have to be, you have to be aware of what's happening around you. And you have to understand that this is the world that we live in. Listen, the world can be a better place, and it will be a better place. We have to start holding those accountable. Because what you saw yesterday, January 6th, as you see the title of the video yesterday, was a dark day. These next 2 weeks, pay attention to see what happens. With that being said, stay safe, enjoy the weekend, I'm ready for some football. But come on now. You got to see. It's right there. It's right there in your face. It's right there in your face. I'm out. Peace. Stay up.